Okay, is it gonna work this time? Yes, it is. Wonderful. Okay, welcome everybody to our weekly Wednesday night live stream. I am your host, Dana Morningstar, and this is a live stream that I try and do every Wednesday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it normally runs for about 3 hours, sometimes more, sometimes less, just kind of depends. If you have a question that you would like, or a topic even, that you would like discussed on the live stream, you can email me at deardana@thriveafterabuse.com. So for everybody that is new here, welcome. And if you are returning here, welcome. I was a little concerned I wasn't going to be able to do this tonight. I think Zoom had an update and it wasn't letting me go live. So uh, restarting the computer solved the problem. It's funny how that happens sometimes. So welcome, welcome. I Rose, Julie, Martha, Huffle Mom, UNA, Crystal, Benjamin, Mystique. Hello, hello. My three loves. Uh, let's see. Kenneth asked Dana, how are you feeling this week? I'm doing pretty good, getting stuff more and more organized, which is fantastic. It's just been a long time in coming. You guys know I am not the most tech savvy person, and by far, uh, putting it mildly. And so it's just been a challenge, but I'm getting some more people joining my team, and we're getting systems down, and it's very, very exciting. And my level of overwhelm and frustration is uh, dropping in proportion to the skilled people I'm getting on board. So that's very exciting. So hopefully we can start doing more and yeah, just get it going. uh, Let's see. Oh, well, thank you, Connie. She says, hi, Dana. I used to watch you all the time when I was in a relationship with a true narcissist about 3 years ago. You saved my life, I have to say. Well, I'm so glad that my videos and that I was able to provide the kind of the clarity and the validation that you were needing at that point in your life. Uh, that really means a lot to me. It's so uh, rewarding to know that uh, that something that I can do is making that much of a difference in the world. And so thank you for letting me know that. And I'm glad that you have moved forward into this next chapter of your life. And I hope that it's the best one yet. Martha says, I usually catch you with Angie. Yes, so there's been a lot of confusion this week and last week. Angie's had things come up last minute, which normally doesn't happen. So we haven't done our weekly live streams together, but she has assured me she feels terrible about that, but she's going to be back this coming Tuesday. So we're going to start up again. So that'll be good. Actually, and while I'm on that topic of live streams, somebody had mentioned to me that they were kind of thinking having some live streams that were different topics, so more structured in the beginning, and then the questions could kind of revolve around those. I just wanted to get you guys' thoughts on that, if that's something that you'd be interested in. And and I guess if so, what topics would you be interested in? In anything, anger, attachment theory, how does change happen? Um, anything that you're open to. I'm not saying I have all the answers, but I'm definitely willing to do the legwork to dig up some information and we can discuss it. Huffle Mom says, "How has your week been, my beautiful friend?" It's been pretty great, my beautiful friend. How has yours been? Oh, oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Connie. She says, "I know it brought tears to my eyes too that I was able to thank you and to tell you just how much you helped me 3 years ago. You're truly a lifesaver for so many people. God bless you." Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. And I guess I also want to kind of give you credit too for your victory. And anybody else out there who's listening, I just kind of want to point out that a lot of, probably all, really, but at least the vast majority of what I say is, I think it's more validating than anything else. My guess is it's things that you've known deep down inside, as far as what direction to head. You just needed that validation from somebody to you just needed that validation. And these relationships can get a person all kinds of twisted up and turned around, and the confusion can be tremendous and the fear can be tremendous. So, but I guess just keep in mind that your inner self knows deep down which direction that you need to head. And that direction is towards, what's nourishing for you in the long run. And you know deep down what feels safe and what feels secure for you. And what brings you energy and what drains you energy, and what juices you and what's toxic for you. So there's lots of power that each one of you have inside. Okay, Jennifer is mentioning maybe the topics could be connected to the book being read for book club. That's a thought. We could do that. Uh, Cynthia says daily migraines began during the worst danger with my ex. Now I've had one for 2 weeks straight. Any recommendations would help. Anyone tried like an icy hot or ice hat band or something that they like? I guess my first thought and concern as a former nurse would be your blood pressure. So during times of extreme stress, it's understandable and normal that our blood pressure rises. But when it stays, especially when it stays like that, it can contribute significantly or cause headaches. So if you have one of the, I don't know where in the world you live, but if you're in the US at least, I know that a lot of like the corner drugs like Walgreens or places like that, they have the blood pressure machines where you can take your blood pressure, and that might be good to go and get that checked. So I guess I would start there. Um, if you're prone to migraines and you don't think it's blood pressure related, or it's not blood pressure related and it's just due to stress, uh, then oftentimes working towards relieving the stress can help. Um, Caffeine can help. Um, yeah, I'll be curious to see what some people say here in the chat. Kenneth Says, Dana, do you have any advice for coping with anxiety attacks? I'm struggling with them right now. And Jack had mentioned, did you see Dana's note for the last live stream? And yeah, I don't normally, thankfully, struggle with panic attacks or anxiety attacks. I mean, I can probably count on one hand how many I've had throughout my life that were like legitimately um, causing me significant distress. So I can only kind of speak from that perspective. In terms of, so there's a couple things. This last week when I was having anxiety attacks really bad, it was because of the hurricane was headed, two hurricanes were headed straight towards Houston, right towards my family. They had their house flood during Hurricane Harvey, and the stress was incredibly high. It was just through the charts, and I just began having anxiety attack after anxiety attack all Wednesday, and I just could not calm myself down. Um, the only thing that, and everybody's different too with anxiety attacks. So what was helping me during that time was to be alone and to remind myself that it was okay, like to just love myself anyhow. And I had a lot of, I just felt terrible that I was missing doing a live stream. And I was, it's easy to get kind of caught up in the spiral of thoughts that can surround these things of, oh, well, I should be able to just, roll with this smoother, and why is this happening? And, um, this, that, and the other. But, we just feel the way we feel, and anxiety attacks, that's at a more base level of our brain. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to reason ourselves out of an anxiety attack, an amygdala attack, basically. We're talking two different areas of our brain. So um, I know if a person's prone to experiencing anxiety and panic attacks, cutting out caffeine helps tremendously. And that's, as a former nurse, I'll tell you, I can't tell you the number of people that would come in for anxiety, and they'd come in with like a 64-ounce Mountain Dew, and then they drink coffee in the morning and then Mountain Dew the rest of the day, or things like that. And especially us as Americans, we can, that's kind of our normal. And so it's hard for us to, I think, hear that amount of caffeine is terrible for our system. It's just whipping our adrenal glands, and our body does tend to rebel at times. And the challenging thing with anxiety is there can be times where you drink pop or you drink a lot of coffee and you're fine, and then all of a sudden other stressors in life come up, and now your system is overloaded and you're having all these anxiety attacks. And it can feel like, well, no, the amount of Mountain Dew or Diet Coke or whatever it is that I'm drinking, that I'm normally fine on that, so that therefore that's not the problem. But it's that's faulty thinking. And it's, I get why people think that, because they've never had an issue with it before. But uh, there really, you can overdose on caffeine, and it's easy to do. I want to say that I think the recommended uh, limits that are considered safe, I want to say, is around like between 300 to 400, I think it's micrograms a day, which is not very much. It's about 12 to 16 ounces. So just for perspective, this cup comfortably holds, like probably to here, about 16 ounces. So that's not a lot. And most of us tend to have, 1, 2, 3 or more of these of coffee a day. So thinking about your caffeine consumption in terms of portion size, not uh, drinking vessel size, because again, coffee, a lot of these travel coffee mugs can be 24 ounces, and it's just easy for us to not realize how much we're consuming. So that's a big one. Um, Noticing if there, I guess, kind of checking in with yourself, and if there's certain times that you're feeling stress more often than others. For a lot of people, uh, being very intentional about what you're putting in your brain helps tremendously. So limiting news, limiting politics, limiting pandemic stuff. And I'm not saying to just, tune it out and live in like your happy little bubble. If you're going to watch the news, you don't need to watch it 3 times a day, or to have it just running in the background. Your stress level is going to be up to here, especially if you live in the US, where it's all kind of fear-based crisis reporting. It's not fair, balanced, like it's not the wide spectrum of news that it is with like the BBC or some other channels in the world. So so getting the news that you're looking for, and then turning the channel. And that's it. It's a challenge because our brain can really have trouble, like distancing ourselves from the news or politics or pandemic information, because it seems, and it is, it seems very important. And like I said, it is to an extent. Um, but having it playing 24/7 is going to raise people, it's going to raise your blood pressure, and it's going to decrease your quality of life. So get what you need to get from the news, and then drive on, kind of a thing. Other strategies of coping with anxiety attacks. So I mentioned checking in with yourself periodically. It can help you can either set an alarm on your phone for every couple hours, or you can try to uh, kind of connect when you're eating with when you're checking in on yourself. So 3 times a day at minimum. And, or even better, maybe every time you take a bathroom break, because we tend to go to the bathroom a lot more than we do eat. So taking some time throughout the day of, okay, on a scale of 0 to 10, how am I feeling right now? Like, where's on a 0 to 10 on a level of, how about contentment? Because that way we're focusing more on uh, contentment and not anxiety. So on that scale, like 10 being the Dalai Lama, right? Okay. And 0 being Gordon Ramsay. like you're just not handling, like you're very reactive. Okay. So like, where are you on that scale? And then asking yourself, okay, what would need to happen in order for my number for contentment to increase? If I'm feeling like I'm about at a 6 right now, what would need to happen to move me to a 7? And why did I give myself a 6 and why not a 5? So getting clarity on what different numbers feel like. And of course, uh, this is not an exact science, but it's still incredibly helpful to check in with yourself and figure out where you are at this time. And once you get used to doing that, it kind of becomes second nature. You become so much more in tune with your emotions, and how to respond to them accordingly. So that alone is a wonderful practice. Julie says, how to overcome isolation. Yes, that is a challenge, especially in the times that we're living in with the pandemic. Before, my go-to advice was meetup.com. It's a great website. I'm not affiliated with it. It's a great way to get out there, meet new people, and kind of engage in hobbies that you've kind of let die on the vine, or hobbies that you're interested in cultivating. I'd have to go to their website. I wonder if some meetup groups are still going on, if they've just moved them to online, which might be the case. So these days with pandemic stuff, I do know that there is there are quite a bit of groups out there that are meeting online. So I guess I would start with that. Um, Doing a Google search for a variety of things can help. Um, if you're spiritual or religious, or uh, even if you're not, if you're more of a humanist, uh, I know like a lot of unity churches or Unitarian churches, they have services online. Those are non-denominational. Um, Everyone's welcome. Atheists, Buddhists, Christians, Jewish people, you name it. Everybody's welcome. It's more of a celebration of love. But if you're into specific denominations, a lot of them have services online and kind of more groups to support each other during this time. Let's see. Let me scroll up. Jack made the comment that I just lost, saying that he liked the idea of doing the uh, having some information prepared around the live stream topics to go with book club. Yeah, I like that. I like that. So we could do kind of a different like theme or so every month. I'll have to chew on that some more. But I really do like that idea. Yeah, Julie, that's a good one too. She said drink water. As far as anxiety, Martha was saying breath work. Yep. Soft Breezy Day was saying you can eventually learn to love decaf and clear sodas. Yes, you absolutely can. I was addicted to Diet Coke, and switched over to drinking soda water. And now I drink an inordinate amount of soda water every day. But, there's no caffeine, and there's the kind I drink, there's no sodium. It's just carbonated water. So it's it's kind of making these swaps. My brother calls them making better he calls them making better bad decisions. So like you don't have to go super healthy with something, but what's a step in the right direction? So if you can't go from coffee to, a green smoothie, what can you do? Can you go from caffeinated coffee to decaf coffee? Try that. Or can you go, Diet Coke to sparkling water, or cut back on the amount of Diet Cokes or Mountain Dews or coffees that you're drinking a day? Elizabeth says, what to do if I have low levels of energy and get tired easily? And that can be a number of things, especially, with pandemic kind of stuff. A lot of people have really limited the time that they're spending outdoors, and that can contribute to, deficiencies in vitamin D, which it will lead to low levels of energy and fatigue. It could be a vitamin B deficiency. It could be depression. It could be overwhelm or stress. It could be a little bit of all of the above. So, at a minimum, starting with, um, you know, if you have a physician or a medical professional that you go to, seeing if you could get some lab work done. If you have, if you have insurance and all that, it's worth getting done at least once a year, in my opinion, for everybody, just to keep up on your numbers and know where you are. Um, and asking and mentioning that I'm having low levels of energy. Can we do a blood test, and can I get checked for vitamin D and vitamin B in addition to the other things that they normally check for, cholesterol and um, glucose and all of those things. Thyroid would be another one, uh, but that tends to contribute to low levels of energy and fatigue. So, and then once, if those are not the culprits, then you have a better idea of, okay, this is what I'm looking at. Okay, it's also, uh, or maybe it's, then okay, maybe it's overwhelm or stress, or maybe it's some feelings of depression. And you can also do this if you go and talk with your doctor and let them know, I'm trying to figure out what's going on. This is how long I've been struggling with this. These are the changes. This is what's been going on in my life. These are kind of different, like situational stressors. These have been certain ongoing stressors. I'm not sure if this is, you know, I've been struggling with this for, I don't know, however long, a 1 week, a month, 6 months, 6 years, however long it might be. And it just doesn't seem to resolve itself. I'm just always tired, and um, and then take it from there. But it's definitely worth getting checked out. Let's see. Jennifer says, yes, so many people. She says, my grandparents do this, have cable news on like 24/7 on blast because they're hard of hearing. And it's like, how do you function with this always in your face? Yeah, I can relate. My dad was like that too. He had news. I mean, my God, the level of news that that man consumed. I was like, no wonder you have a heart condition. Like anybody would have a heart condition. This is too much, too much. And then he would listen to talk radio and um, political talk radio, and which is all kinds of, inflammatory. Oh boy. And man, I don't get ruffled that easily. Most things just, I don't care. I just don't concern myself with most things, but my goodness, my blood pressure would just skyrocket being in there for more than a couple hours. It was really difficult. Ay, ay, ay. So, okay, let's see. Uh, Another thought too is, and thanks for that, Soft Breeze is mentioning medication side effects. Soft Breeze says, SSRIs make my jaw clench and I get horrendous headaches that are constantly worse until I can't get up. It's interesting. It's always, I think, worth typing, if you're taking a medication, typing in the medication and then the side effect that you're experiencing, because the side effects that are on the bottle are just the most common ones, or the most, sometimes it's the most life-threatening ones. But if you've ever seen like a nurse's drug book or drug guide book, they're like this thick, and it's full of all of the medications and all of the side effects, and everything that you would ever want to know about a medication is in there. It's interesting. It's really interesting if you're into that. If not, it's really boring, but it lists all these different side effects, and it it's interesting, certain side effects that you would never think in a million years go with certain medications. So, like personality changes, there can be severe mood swings, there can be irritability, um, hair loss, weight gain. I think that tends to be pretty typical for a lot of psychotropics, but you name it. And then there can be interactions between medications. So, yeah, kind of taking a look at all of that. That's right. Huffle Mom says, don't piss off the nurses. They keep the doctors from killing you by accident. Yes. Yes, that's very, very true. That's probably one of the most uh, difficult parts of being a nurse is when you have a question about a doctor's order, and then you're sort of like, well, I get that I'm not a doctor, but I have some concerns about this, and my place is to advocate for my patient. And so then you have to kind of figure out this very tactful way to approach the doctor about this. And yeah, but thankful if you work with some great doctors, then it's a team and it's just wonderful and everybody's got everybody else's back and it runs smoothly. But it's the ones, and there's nurses that are like that too, the ones that um can't be criticized or can't be questioned whatsoever. And I guess those people are in every field, right? And that just is insufferable. Let's see. Let me scroll up, scroll up, scroll up. Oh, I like that. That is a thought. Soft Breezy Day says, I think another idea for topics might be to set a certain part of the stream aside to ask if anyone has a particular need for support, sort of like the way domestic violence groups do. I like that. Let me write that down because that is a good one. Okay, hold on. Excuse my interruption here. I got to get some paper and okay, time for particular need of support, and then topics to relate to book club. Okay. Okay, good deal. Fatima says, how have you been? I truly miss everyone here. I've been okay. How are you? How have you been? How's your sister? And we've missed seeing you around these parts as well. Okay, let's see. Let me scroll down. Elizabeth says, yes, thank you for tagging Dana, for talking to Jack. Thank you for tagging Dana and helping me. I never gave fatigue a second thought, but it might be an issue. It also runs in the family, so I may be doomed to it. Yeah, it's worth looking into. Women, as we tend to get older, thyroid issues tend to start surfacing. So, but yeah, it's definitely worth looking into. Vitamin D, vitamin B, these kinds of things. Taking a supplement, just like a multivitamin. Um, most people don't need to take a multivitamin if we're eating a somewhat reasonably balanced diet. Although most of us aren't. So, I still think it's good for people to take a multivitamin because most people don't eat very balanced. But you'll know. I mean, as soon as if you start taking vitamin D and vitamin B, um, if you'll notice an improvement in your energy if that's what the issue is. Also, I should also add that during the winter, seasonal depression is a thing that a lot of people really struggle with. There are these light lamps. You can get them from Amazon. Uh, in the before times, you could go to gyms like Planet Fitness, and they had like not tanning beds, but they had light beds, which was just they're just they're like lights for plants, but they're for people. So it's not for tanning, it's to boost your mood. Spending time doing light therapy like that can really, really help. So that's something to consider and to look into. I don't know how much a light lamp is on Amazon. I would imagine under $50. Let's see. Let me scroll up here. Oh, interesting. Jennifer says, yeah, there's a documentary called The Brainwashing of My Dad. Talks about the political news evolution in this country. That's very interesting. I love a good documentary. Yeah, I'd be up for that. Let's see. Scrolling here. Okay, Jack was saying, yeah, the full spectrum lights. He said Hufflemom's late father built us a light box that's mounted into the shower for maximum exposure. Light therapy is a thing, y'all. It helps. Interesting. So what do you I don't know if I even want to know the answer to this question. So you have a light box in your shower. So do you just kind of shower and get light all at the same time? What is the process? I'm very confused and fascinated, but concerned to know that answer. Let's see. You know, Fatima, you mentioned an interesting point that I forgot that I wanted to touch on tonight, but we'll touch on this. So Fatima was saying, my brain has been so evil lately and has been trying to convince me into things that I'm not wanting to do. And I also actually just wanted to add, with for women especially, this is something to watch out for. If you're having almost like psychotic thoughts of um, kind of suicidal thoughts, but you're not depressed, where your brain is kind of pushing you to hurt yourself, to hurt other people, to end your life. Sometimes that can be hormonal, and I don't know why this isn't addressed on more birth controls. Um, I have my own conspiracy theories behind that, but it's like I said, as a former nurse and now as a therapist, I've seen it quite a bit, and I've personally experienced it. So just realize that that can be a very real thing. If you're experiencing mood swings, sometimes it can be hormonal and due to medication. I don't think that's your situation, Fatima, but I just wanted to, it just reminded me to bring that up. Uh, Brendan, as he says, is judging people a form of narcissistic projection? Oh, are you talking about my comment about their shower? No judgment. It just, I don't know, interest, kind of. Okay. Jack was saying, okay, it's aimed into the shower. There's no danger of water getting on the light bulbs. It's hard to explain unless I share a photo. So is that what you do? Do you turn on the light box in the shower when you shower? I mean, that's really clever. If it's done safely. If not, you're, you know, taking a gamble every time. But okay, this is what I wanted to talk about, Fatima. So there's two types of, I guess you could say, thoughts and behavior. There's what's known as ego syntonic and then ego dystonic. Ego syntonic are thoughts and actions that are in alignment with who we believe ourselves to be. So the result of that is that we see no problem with our thinking or our actions if they fall into that ego syntonic category. If they fall into that ego dystonic category, we're having thoughts or actions that we find troubling. So they're not in alignment with who we think ourselves to be. And there's a multitude of reasons when people experience thoughts, especially that are ego dystonic. But what the good news is, the person, those thoughts aren't in resonance with who they believe themselves to be. So there's a much easier way for them, because of that cognitive dissonance, basically. These thoughts are making them uncomfortable, so they don't tend to act on them because they're like, wow, where did that come from? That's not me. That's not how my brain normally works. That's not what I'm about. That's completely in conflict with my morals or my values or what have you. It's when a person has ego syntonic thoughts or actions that are problematic, but they don't see any problem with them. That's when things are really problematic. So, and of course, it can be difficult to tell if a person's being sincere. You get people confessing, oh yeah, I struggled with, I don't know, treating people poorly or with lying. And I just, I feel awful about it, but really they don't feel bad about it at all. They're only in therapy because their probation officer requires it, or you know what I mean? So it can be difficult to really suss out whether or not there's sincerity there. So I guess the point being is, we can think of our own thoughts and actions that way. Like, is this syntonic or is this dystonic? And this is powerful stuff because it leads to everything that we do in life. This is a lot of what drives our behavior. So it starts with getting to know, like, who do we believe ourselves to be? What kind of person do we think we are? And what kind of person do we want to be? And that's where the root of all change really happens. So if we don't at our core believe something to be true about ourselves, then we're not motivated to move forward on that. And interestingly enough, we're only going to accept information from other people or from outside sources that we think is true, that we not even think, that we believe to be true. So let's say, for example, I cook a meal and I feed it to everybody, to 4 different people. Okay. And let's say all the adults like it. And let's say there's 2 kids and the kids don't like it. And the kids are like, ooh, this is gross. I don't like this, blah, blah, blah. I'm going, when that kind of situation happens, I may or may not take that into account. I may say like, okay, well, okay, there's blue cheese in this dish. And so these kids don't like blue cheese. They only like chicken nuggets, right? Or they only like these certain limited foods. It doesn't mean that my cooking is necessarily bad. It means that that's their opinion that they don't like these certain foods, and that's okay. So I'm not going to internalize that to mean, okay, I am a bad cook. Now, it would be different if I was getting some opinions of people that did like blue cheese who were eating the dish and they were like, I don't, it tastes a little undercooked or a little overcooked, or I don't know, it needs something more. I'm going to be more inclined. If I have a reasonably healthy level of self-esteem, I'll take that as maybe constructive feedback. Yeah, you know what? You're right. Yeah, I think it needs some more pepper, or and maybe about another 20 minutes in the oven. If I have shaky self-esteem, I might take this to mean, oh, this criticism, I'm not a good cook. Nobody likes my cooking. I'll never be able, I'm catastrophizing and I'm falling into that black or white thinking. I'm never going to be a good cook. I should just stop. I just don't have any talent for this. So it's interesting to see where a person's self-esteem is, because we only let in what we believe to be true. And this is one of the challenges with people that have experienced abuse, is their self-esteem tends to be incredibly damaged, because if they never were raised in a um, healthy enough or home with reasonable enough parents, then they never had an accurate perception of like their strengths and weaknesses, and to how to grow and learn, and how to kind of make mistakes, and realizing that mistakes are part of success and that they happen to all of us. So it's it's interesting. Another example of this might be, let's say you're walking down the street and you have um, a person, let's uh, you know, a person who's very disheveled and uh, kind of wild-eyed, and they're walking down the street and they're talking to themselves and they're screaming at other people, and they start screaming at you, and they say, oh, you're not worthy of love. You're stupid, you're terrible at your job, you're never going to go anywhere in life. If a person has reasonable enough or healthy enough self-esteem, we're not going to internalize that at all, because of, again, the source that it's coming from. So this person doesn't know us, they're a stranger, and we can tell like um, they're kind of in their own reality, right? So we don't take offense to that. We're not letting that in. But if the same things were said by somebody close to us, a parent, a sibling, a partner, a friend, we're much more inclined, or we can be much more inclined to internalize that and to take that as absolute truth. And that can be so dangerous. And that's the challenge with untangling a lot of these dysfunctional and disempowering messages that people have received over the years, because if they've received it from, especially from like their parent growing up, starting at a young age, kids take things as absolute truth, because kids by design are egocentric. Everything is about them. That's just how human beings are wired. We're that way until we get to a certain age, and then our brain advances to like the next step, right? It kind of levels up a bit. But they don't children, if their parents divorce, kids think, oh, they might think, oh, I caused that. If something bad happens, they might blame themselves. Um, they can, especially in dysfunctional homes, have a um, like overreactive level of accountability. So like an inappropriate level of accountability, where they think that they should be helping out around the house, and to a point of an adult, like adult level help, not age appropriate level kid help. Making money, taking emotional care of other people, these kinds of things. So I don't know. I hope that made sense. So the point is ego syntonic, ego dystonic. And this is also a way that you can uh, kind of tell too with the behavior of others, where if there's no sincere empathy or remorse there at this point in their life, that's ego syntonic behavior, and that's scary. That's a problem. So seeing kind of meet the whole meeting other people where they are. So seeing where they are and in being firm in reality of that, not holding on to hope, thinking that they'll someday be different, not wishing that they would be who they were 10 years ago, seeing who they are today, meeting them where they are today, and then responding accordingly. So if we have somebody in our life who's not sincerely remorseful and they're, doing all, they're doing hurtful things, realizing, okay, they are able to do the mental gymnastics necessary to justify this to themselves. And this is a problem. So they're not motivated. They're not even in the ballpark of being motivated to change yet. So at this point in the game, it's important that you get some distance, use your boundaries to keep you safe um, for this. So um, let's see here. Let me scroll up. Aubrey says, I'm literally in pain from my narcissistic ex. Yes. And this is very common as well. So, and this isn't a connection that's discussed enough, um, but the kind of this more, when we talk about like a holistic approach to health and wellness, that tends to be chalked up to like, oh, that's kind of a woo-woo thing, but it's not. It makes absolute sense, right? Because every part impacts another part. Nothing exists in a vacuum. So um, with humans especially, there's a lot of interchange between our thoughts and our physical health and our emotional health. And there's been studies done on the brain that show emotional pain can register uh, the same way as physical pain. And emotional pain, which tends to come on as well, a lot of times a lot of stress. Stress is a catalyst for all kinds of things, all kinds of things. It can lead to, anxiety. It can lead to depression. It can lead to inflammation. It can lead to, gastrointestinal disorders, um, weight gain, weight loss, hair loss, breaking out in hives, like skin conditions, all kinds of things. So managing our stress is really vital. And this is one of the biggest things that we do have control over at this point in our life. Thankfully, that doesn't cost any money, is learning how to manage our stress. And so when you are moving forward and healing from abuse, um, learning, kind of adding different skills to your wheelhouse or your toolbox as far as how you handle stress. There's a lot of guided meditations on YouTube that are wonderful, that can be a really nice kind of way to end the evening and wind down. Learning and utilizing some deep breathing exercises, different grounding techniques where you take time to be fully in the moment and using all of your different five senses. It brings you back into your body. Um, yeah. And then noticing kind of what in your environment, what in your current environment, what nourishes you and what drains you. and then working to change what you can. It's surprising how sometimes um, it doesn't have to be like massive major changes that make it a difference. Sometimes it can be much smaller changes that that really can make a difference. It might be at work, um, you know, positioning your desk in a different way, or putting a picture of your pet or your child or um, a friend on your desk, or um, just buying a mug that makes you smile every time you see it, um, rearranging the furniture in your home, or putting away objects that carry a lot of emotion or memories for you, um, or donating them. These kinds of things can really help to reduce stress. It's amazing what we can get used to, the emotional state we can get used to, and what a difference it makes when we change things around to make it actually work for where we are in our lives now. Um, let's see. Let me scroll up here. Gareth says, Dana, people enjoy your food when they start licking the plate at the end of the meal. Yes, this is true. This is very true. Let's see. Fatima was saying the thoughts that she's experiencing are very extreme. They're either really violent or sexual. And I think, I don't know if Jack asked about any type of like obsessive compulsiveness. That would be my question as well. Okay. Yeah. Yes. She's okay. You've been suffering from OCD for a while. Yeah. Um, that can, the level of intrusive thoughts, disturbing intrusive thoughts is very common with obsessive compulsive. Um, so let's, wow. Tina was saying that she ground her teeth down. Yes, clenching your jaw can be a big one. I think I'd shared this with you. I had a friend, this was years ago. She was going through, her husband was a piece of work, completely indifferent to, just textbook narcissist. Like he just didn't care at all. Like cheating nonstop, and just the lack of empathy, the lack of remorse, the jaw-dropping level of entitlement that he had. It was just off the charts. And she was under so much stress, and she was clenching her jaw. And we I had taken her to my favorite like day spa place, and the nurse practitioner there had mentioned, she's like, your jaw, uh for my friend, she's like, your jaw muscle is bigger on one side than it is on the other. Have you been clenching your jaw lately? And my friend was like, oh my gosh, yes, I know, I just noticed that the other night. And she ended up getting Botox in her jaw to loosen the muscle, because it was so bad that she was grinding her teeth, and just the constant clenching. So it's amazing. And it's amazing what we can tune out, you know? Like that's weird on its own. Let's see here. Okay, let me scroll up here. Hmm. Elizabeth says, the only good things that narcissists do is pushing us towards self-acceptance and self-love. Yeah, and that might sound really strange to people who are new here. um, like, what on earth are you talking about? No, that they don't do that at all. It's the opposite, right? They grind us down, and it's so much pain and um, self-rejection and self-hate and confusion and all of that. But what Elizabeth is saying, at least I think what Elizabeth is saying, is that um, when we're far enough out of these relationships with deeply destructive and dysfunctional people like this, on the path to healing, some of the biggest lessons that we can learn while we're in that process of rebuilding our life and rebuilding our sense of self is um, realizing that we have value, that we have worth, that we do not, that it is not okay for us to be treated that way by them or by anybody, and that we will not tolerate being treated like that again. That this isn't something we need to stick around for or try to fix in another person or tolerate or excuse or any of that. It doesn't matter if they're family, it doesn't matter if they're friends, doesn't matter if we're married to them. That it's everybody. It's the basics of it of um, adult behavior and just the basics of appropriate behavior of treating other people with dignity and respect. It's not something that you have to earn. It's not something that uh, you know that you should need to argue with or that can be kind of doled out as the other person feels. That's emotionally very immature for uh, for those that think that of, oh well, you have to earn my love, you have to earn being treated right. If you did everything the way that I think you should, then you can earn my love or what have you. But um, that's disgusting. So yeah, that's not what it's about. And the self-acceptance. So when we are on that path to healing, and I think kind of open to self-exploration, which again, for a lot of people that are new here or that are new to this kind of material, that can seem very disconnected. Like, well, how on earth is this related? I was married to this person who was very psychopathic, and how on earth is that related to self-acceptance or self-love? I did nothing wrong. Right. I just got tangled up with this person. How on earth was I supposed to know that they were a psychopath? All of this stuff. And that level of questioning is I think probably the first step on that road to healing and awareness, is when we start asking these questions. And this is kind of the benefit, I think, of support groups and um, talking and interacting with other people that have experienced this, because reading a book or even one-on-one in therapy, there can be a lot of defensiveness present where we're like, what on earth are you talking about? I'm talking about, you know, I mean, it feels like apples and oranges, like so completely unrelated, but it it's very related. And it's kind of tends to be further down in a person's healing and understanding. And we can absolutely squeeze out as much as we possibly can from these painful experiences and make it useful, um, for our highest and greatest good, and in time for the highest and greatest good of others. That's really powerful. So yes, these experiences um, can lead us to even if we don't, because here's the thing too, is most people, we all tend to walk around, um, we are our own baseline for normal. So we all kind of tend to walk around thinking that our boundaries are good enough, that our standards are good enough, that our communication is good enough, that we everything that we're doing is functional enough because we're functioning in society. It's not until something radical happens that causes a tremendous amount of pain that begins to get us to kind of question our approach to things. And this is the challenge because it can be really difficult. It can take a lot of time for a person to get to that place where they start being even open to the possibility of exploring these sides of themselves. So, um, I guess I would just encourage anybody that's listening to this to think about it in terms of let's just go into let's just go into this with the mindset that every single person out there, regardless of whether or not they've been through the meat grinder of narcissistic abuse, that every single person has some sort of disempowering or dysfunctional thinking. It's frankly, it's inevitable. If you grew up in especially in a society, well, even if you didn't, like that's its own level of challenges, right? Because you're not getting new information or different information. But if you are a human being, then the odds are you have been exposed to disempowering and dysfunctional information somewhere along the line, from your parents, from friends, from bullies, from exes, from authority figures like teachers, or you name it. And the challenge with this whole personal growth journey is going through and questioning all of these things and figuring out, okay, does this fit for where you are in this stage in your life? And in realizing too that what might have worked, like who you were 5 years ago or even 5 months ago, is not who you are today. So as humans, we are continually like, growing and changing. And the beautiful part of this is you are the author of this book that you call your life. And so you get to choose who is in each chapter and for how long they're in each chapter, and if they're going to be a major character or a minor character, or who they are in your book. That's really powerful to just know, okay, this chapter could be very long, it could be very short. It could be it can be whatever you decide to write it. So if you're at a place where you're like, you know what, I'm just done. Um, I'm moving forward. I'm healing. This relationship recently ended, and it can feel very overwhelming to think about moving forward with the rest of your life and all of the work of rebuilding. Think about it in chapters. This is just simply the next chapter. That's it. Just simply the next chapter. There will be more chapters after this one. There always are. You just keep putting one foot in front of the other. Okay, let's see. Let me scroll up. I was looking for a comment and then I lost it. Okay, Fatima was talking about these thoughts that she's having. She said, they're troubling. I'm scared to death that these thoughts may actually be a part of who I am, and it causes me extreme distress. Yeah. And Helpful Mom was saying, thoughts that enter your mind that bother you do not necessarily indicate enjoyment of that thing. My brain keeps reminding me of frustrating things my parents said. I hate that. Yes. And these, you know, Fatima, this is something kind of dark and disturbing thoughts. We all have them to some extent. And the thing with thoughts is it's just, they happen and we don't have control over them. Our brain is always, when well, especially when we're awake, it's going, 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 going. And it's thinking about stuff and it's mulling it over and it processing it. And you're going to have, we all have all kinds of thoughts throughout the day. Some are bizarre, some are comical, some are interesting, some are ridiculous, some can be dark, some can be disturbing. And but people, that it's not something that's normally talked about. And so when people do experience dark and disturbing thoughts, it can be terrifying. And it can feel like, oh my gosh, is there something profoundly wrong with me? Um, I don't want to think these thoughts are just dark and disturbing. I don't want to be thinking these things. And how do I make it stop? Oftentimes, the more we resist that, the more our brain tends to think about it. So Carl Jung, a big part of his work had to do with exploring what he called the shadow self. And that shadow self was all of these parts of us that we're not comfortable with. Oftentimes, a lot of thoughts and feelings that we're not comfortable with, and making peace with that shadow self. So, like I was talking about earlier, the difference between thoughts being syntonic, ego syntonic, and ego dystonic. The good news is that these thoughts, these dark and disturbing thoughts, are ego dystonic. So you're experiencing them as troubling. I would be concerned for you if you were having these dark and disturbing thoughts and like debating about following through on them. But if uh, one approach, you could try you could try this and see if it works. And if not, then try something different. But instead of resisting these thoughts as they surface, to try to approach them with curiosity and not judgment. So, let's just say I'm not even going to say stuff out loud because I just don't want to put anybody, you know, um, I don't want to contribute to these kind of thoughts, but a dark and disturbing thought. And you have it and it's really troubling. Instead of being like, oh my gosh, that's just horrible. And I can't believe that. I never want to think about that again. And you're exerting all this energy trying to distance yourself. Try doing the opposite and thinking, well, and you can acknowledge, wow, that's really dark and disturbing. I wonder where this came from. Um, I wonder if there's a deeper message here. I wonder if my brain is trying to get my attention in a certain way. And maybe following it up with just acknowledging that you're not going to act on them and that you love yourself regardless of the thoughts you have. We all have, like I said, we all have all kinds of thoughts. Your thoughts aren't what make you a good or a bad person. It's your actions that matter. So taking some of the pressure off um, and seeing if that helps. And it might be, when people are under significant amount of stress, which I know you have been, a tremendous amount of stress. Okay. It can come out in all kinds of ways. And so if you've been, um, suppressing your anger and your hurt and your overwhelm and your stress, it our emotions, when we do that, when we're not allowed to express them, they don't just go away. They come out in different ways. It's sort of like if we have a leak in um like a leak, I'm trying to think of an example, like a leak in a pipe, and we don't, we don't, I'm trying to think if that's the best analogy. maybe a better analogy is if you ever read the book The Cat in the Hat and he's trying to get rid of the spot, there's this spot. And so he cleans it off and he's like, oh, yeah, yeah, totally done. No problem. But then he, you know, uh, takes the towel and he throws it in the bathtub. And now the spot's even bigger and it's in the bathtub. And the spot keeps moving around and reappearing and reappearing. That's very similar to our emotions when we're not allowing ourselves to acknowledge them and to work through them, then they start coming out in all different kinds of weird ways that maybe seem unrelated, but they are related. People cope in all kinds of ways, and it might be too. It might be easier instead of truly acknowledging hurt or hate or anger or disappointment in certain people in your life, that that it's coming out in terms of really dark thoughts. So, okay, let's scroll down here. I like that, Darlene, and I do think that's a good suggestion too. She says, one suggestion that she was given is to substitute good thoughts for the bad ones instead of fighting it. So instead of fighting to not think of something, deliberately think of something good and the bad will go. I like that. So, for example, let's say you have a dark and disturbing thought about your sister. You could then replace that with, um, things that are good that you like about your sister. Oh, I would never do that to her. I would never, she, uh, replace it with some sort of good thought, warm, fuzzy feelings that you have. Let's see. Huffle Mom, I've been meaning to ask this for a while. Were you ever interested in being a moderator here in the chat? I feel like I asked you a while back and you'd said that you didn't want to at this time because you were under a lot of stress. Is that still the case? Uh, or did I dream that? I don't know if I dreamt that. We'll see what you have to say. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah, Huffle Mom says, seriously, I would love to. Oh, good. Ta-da! You're now a moderator. Yes. I have a power team on board. So this should be interesting. Husband and wife power team. Moderation. Yay for Huffle Mom. Thank you, Huffle Mom, for all you do and all the support that both you and Jack continually give to others and help me out. It's just beyond appreciated. Oh, she says, oh, my jaw just about fell on the damn floor. Oh, yes. I am so sorry. I could have sworn that I asked you a while ago. And am I way off on that? Did that ever happen? Like, am I thinking about somebody else? Or was that a weird dream? Yes, we should have done this a long time ago because, yes, you're absolutely fantastic. So, Jack, you better be on your best behavior because Huffle Mom's moderator now. Uh, let's see. Scrolling. Good for you. Fatima says, "Oh, I forgot to mention, I've been doing strength building. I've built some muscle. It helped me cope with some of my anxiety. So that's good. That's awesome. What a wonderful way to, yeah, to handle stress and anxiety and, um, yeah, just be good to yourself at the same time." I started lifting weights again too. Uh, but I'll tell you something funny. This is when I realized just how out of shape I am. Okay. So I have these little weights, not, I'm not crushing it over here or anything. They're like 6 pound. I think I have two 10-pound weights. And so I was doing a series of like, like chest press and there's one for your shoulders and, um, what is it? The kickbacks, tricep kickback ones. And I did something, I tweaked my neck so bad. It was ridiculous. I was in so much pain. And, uh, Paul had asked me, he said, "Well, did you warm up ahead of time?" And I said, "Well, no, like warm up. These are not heavy weights by any stretch." I guess I kind of figured that is along like that used to be a warm up, right? So no, I didn't ever think that I needed to warm up for my warm up, but apparently I do. So lesson learned. Yeah, and I need to get back into it now that my neck is, I can turn it again and it's no longer tweaked. And good. Oh, Fatima, she says, "Don't worry, I still can't do one full push-up. I can only do knee push-ups." Yes, I'm with you. I need to work on the upper body. I need to work on all of it, but upper body strength for sure. I've no strength. Jennifer says, "Yes, you need to warm up and cool down." Yeah, I guess I just didn't think I needed to if I was going to do something so mild. Let's see. Let me scroll. And Darlene was saying, "Yeah, you got to start somewhere. My friend who now runs for miles started by walking to the corner and back." Yes, this is so true. I know, right? UNA says, "Do I need to warm up to stand up out of a chair?" Like that's seriously how I felt. Like, oh my, when when did this happen? I feel like I'm 100 years old and I just doing small things. All of a sudden I throw my back out or I throw my neck out. It's ridiculous. There was a video about running I came across the other day. It was so funny. I don't know. I was, I don't know if it's like a TikTok or an Instagram or something, but this guy was showing like the different types of runners. It was so funny. Um, like the people that are, that are super hardcore and like they're intense. And then you have the kind of the new runners that are all just kind of flailing around. And then you have the floppy hand runners and you have the flailing legs runners. Um, And the runners who lean forward, the runners who lean back, uh, the it was so funny. He just nailed it perfectly, all the different types of runners out there. Crystal, okay, that is a really great question. She says, does or can being in a narcissistic relationship cause anxiety attacks in other areas of life, such as anxiety about death? I would imagine that it absolutely could, because here's the thing, our brain is, um, it's wired, its primary job is to keep you safe. And so how it does that is it's always scanning our environment for threats of danger. And when that what's dangerous is when that's activated in our brain, we go into fight or flight. And if we're in an ongoing, uh, extremely stressful relationship, we're going to continually be in fight or flight. But the hard part is, because this stuff's not taught or talked about or known, um, we oftentimes are questioning our, like, a perception of reality. Is it us? Is it them? Like, who has this issue? This isn't comfortable. And it's amazing the stuff that we can minimize and justify. And so we might not even realize that we're continually in fight or flight in these types of relationships. And it's not until after the fact that we've left that we realize, oh my gosh, I feel like I can breathe, or I didn't realize like how tightly wound I was when I had that person in my life. So when that happens, that anxiety, because it especially if we don't know what's causing at the time, if we don't know what's causing this anxiety, um, our brain is trying to link up. It's doing the best it can to make meaning out of things, to figure out what's causing us to feel this way, what's causing us danger. And the result, more often than not, tends to be a lot of like um, incorrect connections about what's causing us pain. So, for example, uh, and this just tends to happen too, where um, one thing causes us pain and now we're highly suspect of something else. So for example, let's say if your ex had a red diesel pickup truck, and now, even let's even say that you've moved across the country and you know that he's nowhere or she's nowhere around. You might find that you're on high alert every time you see a red vehicle or hear a loud diesel engine or see a pickup truck. It's that initial sense of, your heart kind of stops. Um, and this goes across the board. It could be with certain smells or certain um, uh, sounds, that they used to like a certain type of music or listen to certain types of shows or watch certain types of YouTube channels. It's amazing, all of the different, wear a perfume or a cologne, or have a certain accent, like a regional accent. Um, and so encountering other people that have some of these similarities can raise our anxiety and can create panic, and we might not even realize it. So, and this is what can be so confusing for people after these relationships, because they're like, man, I feel like I have PTSD. Uh, but can a person get PTSD from something like this? Because it can cause a lot of confusion, because normally when we think of um, trauma or uh, post-traumatic stress, we tend to think of it in more like concrete cause and effect type of way, where in generally people think of war veterans, right? Oh, this person goes to war, they're exposed to horrible things, they come back and now they have PTSD, or what we used to be referred to as shell shock. And you know um, they hear a car backfire and they start crying, or they drop to the ground, or they have constant nightmares about war, these kinds of things. It's similar but different after an abusive relationship. So after an abusive relationship, it tends to not be so uh, the connection or the correlation isn't so apparent. We might be find ourselves becoming like activated or triggered and not even know why. Like I mentioned, the whole pickup truck thing. Or you come across somebody that has the same name as your ex, or the same birth date, or anything that might even be similar. If this trauma is still very fresh and you're still processing it, and it takes a while for your brain to make sense of a relationship like this, um, then uh, this anxiety tends to surface in a multitude of ways, like night terrors, nightmares, or I should say, very emotionally charged dreams, or a person might wake up in a pool of sweat, or they wake up screaming, they wake up crying, um, or you're just with a profound sense of heaviness is very common. Avoidance, PTSD in general tends to have like four main categories of symptoms in order for it to be considered PTSD, and they have to last a certain length of time. Um, Avoidance of kind of that person or triggering situations is one of them. Um, and I don't want to tell you wrong, so I'd have to go look the other three to make sure I'm telling you right. But um, so yeah, I guess the point is anxiety. It can cause anxiety in other areas, and another way that it can cause anxiety is if we're not. So let's say if we do experience this kind of a trigger, right? Like your ex drove a pickup truck, you see a pickup truck and you're like, "Ah," but then you calm yourself down. You're like, "Oh my gosh, come on. Come on, Crystal. He doesn't live anywhere near here. It's okay. This was a long time ago. Like you're fine." You're trying to calm yourself down, but the that works for like the prefrontal cortex, the logic and critical thinking part of your brain, but it may or may not work for your limbic system, or like the deeper like emotional parts of your brain. So that part still might be engaged in fight or flight. And so here we are we're telling ourselves kind of, oh, basically, pat, pat, it's okay, you're fine, but we're not fine. So we're still feeling activated. And then if our body, if we're trying to suppress that activation, and we might even do a good job of it for like a couple hours, a couple days, a couple weeks even, and then it all of a sudden comes out at like the most bizarre, inopportune time, where we're at the grocery store and we just start crying, or um, you know what I mean? Like you have a panic attack in the middle of a presentation at work, or uh, when you're not necessarily nervous, or you're having a panic attack in the shower, and you're like, where is this coming from? Um, Yeah, everything can get all tangled up. Let's see here. Mhm. Okay, so Jaquetta says, my friend is always starting stuff. Like I never get mad at her ever, but she's always mad at me. I don't know why, but she can't go 2 weeks without getting mad at me again. And I don't know if I'm wrong. So have you have you asked her? Like, is she able to articulate why she's mad at you? Or does she just give you the silent treatment and get huffy, or um, that kind of thing? I guess I wouldn't look at it in terms of like wrong or right. I would look at it in terms of, is this something that she can, verbalize? And is this something that, is there um, kind of any validity to her concerns, or are they inappropriate? Like, for example, let's give you an example of like an appropriate or inappropriate uh, issue that she might have. Let's say she gets mad when you go spend time with your other friends. Okay. That's not your issue. You're It's completely reasonable and appropriate and healthy and normal for you to have other friends outside of her. And the fact that she doesn't like that you don't spend all your time with her, that's not your problem. That's her problem. And so holding your boundary of, um, you know, like we have, I don't know, we have lunch together every day at school, and I talk to you, on a regular basis. Like, you're my friend and I spend time with you. And when I spend time with other people, it's not because I don't want to spend time with you, it's because I want to spend time with them too. So, um, yeah, so that would be like an inappropriate request on her end. Okay. So she's going to need to just learn how to self-soothe or uh, drive on, because that's not your responsibility to twist yourself into a pretzel to um, to try to give her all of everything that she wants in order for her to feel okay, in order for her to treat you appropriately and nice. So, um, but okay, so let's give an example of an appropriate issue that she might have. Let's say um, you're, I don't know, you have a crush on her boyfriend, or um, you, I don't know, I'm trying to think of, she um, wanted to buy a certain outfit and um, couldn't afford it, but you went ahead and bought it, and now you're kind of flaunting it or something. Like, that's more along the lines of understandable uh, as to why somebody would be upset. Let's see if she's responded at all. No. So I guess the point being, at the end of the day, what's most important is, um, if a person, it's okay for a person to be frustrated or upset. However, it's worth figuring out is what they're frustrated and upset over, kind of where are boundaries in that? Is it appropriate, or is it crossing a line? Is it trying to control your behavior uh, in a smothering, inappropriate way? Or um, is your behavior like encroaching on her space, kind of a thing? So, and even if there is frustration and anger present, it's important that people are able to verbalize this and to be assertive and to talk about this so that it can be resolved. So, um, and you might not see eye to eye with her. She might have, like I said, she might have an issue with you in the way that you're acting, and it's going to depend on your own boundaries and everything as to whether or not you necessarily agree with that. So I think we've all, at least a lot of us, have had some really controlling, manipulative people in our life that have gotten upset because we haven't done things the way that they thought we should do them, not realizing that their expectations of us was outrageous and ridiculous and inappropriate. And that the solution wasn't to keep trying to the solution wasn't for us to shrink down and keep trying to smooth things over with them and make them okay and walk on eggshells and you know um, let them have more control over us. Like, that wasn't the solution to it, to those kinds of problems. But if she's not able to verbalize it, if she's just acting, silent treatment, acting huffy, slamming doors, not talking to you, that kind of stuff is not conducive for a friendship. And so having a talk with her and saying, I don't know what's wrong unless you let me know what's wrong. And is this something that you want to talk about or what? And I would make it very clear to her that you're not going to let this kind of manipulative behavior of um she's not talking to you for a couple weeks or whatever, to say, "You know what? Unless you let me know that there's an issue, I'm going to act I'm just going to act like there isn't an issue. And so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not even going to think about it." And just try to not let her hissy fits um throw you off what you're doing. And frankly, and that goes for even if your behavior is kind of violating her boundaries. If she's not able, you're not a mind reader. So if you really don't think that you're doing anything wrong, you're like, I'm just out here living my life. All I'm doing is spending time with my other friends, or I sat with some different kids at lunch today, or um, I started dating this guy that she liked, but she's liked a lot of guys. Like, she never dated this guy, you know what I mean? If she's still her the responsibility is still on her to need to articulate that. It's not fair for any of us to expect other people to just read our mind, and it's not appropriate for us to expect, uh, uh, for us to try to control, um, what other people do, or to think that they should make us their whole world, these kinds of things. So I hope that helps. Okay, let me scroll up here. UNA says, I got major anxiety about death and panic attacks that I'd meet the narcissist that I dated for 2 years again in the afterlife. Before they passed, I had suicidal ideation all the time. After they passed, my passing scared me. Wow. Yeah, that's a tremendous amount of anxiety to be um, walking around with. And it's just absolutely wild how truly toxic these dynamics can be. Mystique says, my whole life has been fight or flight. And, that's the case, I think, for a lot of people, and they don't realize it. I remember reading a quote, I don't know, like on Instagram or somewhere, where they said, fight or flight is meant to be temporary. It's not meant to be how you live your life. And I thought, wow, yeah, you're right. Like, fight or flight is supposed to be there to kind of motivate or give us the energy and the ability to get ourselves to safety. It's not how we're supposed to be living our life. And of course, I mean, it makes sense, right? Of course, we're going to have all kinds of issues, um, physical wise and emotional wise, if we're continually in fight or flight, and we're in denial about it, or we're actively trying to suppress it. So, okay, let's see. Let's scroll up here. Jack is saying that him and Hufflemom are both at physiotherapy together. How's that going? You've been going to that you guys have been going to that for a while. Are you making are you making the progress that you're hoping for? Oh, just remembered the other part of what I wanted to talk about. We're talking about, uh, ego syntonic and ego dystonic, thoughts. So where okay, in terms of good thoughts or, powerful like goals or positive beliefs about ourselves, we only let those in that resonate as true. So this is also incredibly powerful. So, uh, you've I'm sure heard me talk about affirmations and the power of affirmations, and I know that there's a lot of mixed feelings about affirmations, but the power in affirmations isn't just saying them. It's allowing them to sink in at a deeper level and actually feeling them. Feeling the feelings of what that would be like to, um, to be that kind of person that you wanna be. So let's say, for example, you're working on, I don't know, uh, we'll go with exercise since we're talking about that. So maybe you have the affirmation of, "I am, um, fit and toned," or, "I am a runner," or, "I am an aerialist," or, "I am, uh, patient." If you tend to get frustrated often, "I am patient." These kinds of things. And at first, it's not going to register as true because it's not. This is what you're wanting to become. This is the you in the future, right? Next chapter, next chapter version of you. It's interesting to continue to repeat these affirmations to yourself. There will come a time if you can allow yourself to truly feel that and then start proving yourself right. So taking the actions necessary to become that which you want to become. So if you're telling yourself, "I am fit and toned," then all of the little things that you do throughout your day, acknowledging that because that's going to support your new belief in yourself. I am fit and toned. Okay, well then eating a salad is something a fit and toned person would do. Um, I don't know, ordering frozen yogurt is something a fit and toned person would do. Going for a jog or um, walking the dog or, um, you know, making kind of healthier decisions. These are all things a fit and toned person would do. And so moving in that direction, it's the whole kind of like acting as if, but there comes a point where there is no longer acting. There is the you've become the thing. So, you've become the person that you wanna become. And so it's interesting, and it's also interesting to, uh, to kind of think about, like, affirmations or, um, things that you want to become and pay attention to what kind of gives you pause. What makes you kind of feel like, "Oh, I don't like back up a little bit." You're like, "I don't know if that's true." That's very interesting. It'll kind of capture your attention as to kind of what needs what needs to be worked on. Like why is this not in resonance for you? So uh, I don't know. It's just interesting. Like for example, um, I've written quite a few books in this topic. I've written under a pen name for fiction. I've written other nonfiction books in a totally different genre. Uh, I I write, but still I still don't necessarily think of myself as an author, which is weird because I've published quite a few books, like over 10. I don't know why. Like I do it, but that I can acknowledge that. Oh, I even have trouble acknowledging that I'm a writer because I guess in my mind a writer is um there's more of a schedule and it's just kind of different than my approach. So that's something I've really had to work on. And so I think we all have little areas like that. So it's worth kind of examining what areas of your life do you feel kind of I don't know, where there's some resistance, and where is that coming from? And what would need to happen in order to soften that resistance or to feel that uh, you know that is who you are in this chapter of your life. So I think Zoom is doing something weird. uh hmm, I don't even know if this is still going. This live stream is still happening. Hmm. Zoom was doing something weird before I came on. I had to restart my computer. So if it is still doing something weird, I apologize. And I think it is. I think it is. So, okay. Hmm. It looks like the chat is frozen. Ay, ay, ay. Okay. Well, I'm I think I'm just gonna wrap it up for tonight because I'm not even sure if this is still going. So, uh, yeah, I guess if you're here or if you've listened to this far, um, I will see you next week. And if you have topic ideas for live streams, if there's anything that you would like me to do a deeper dive on or to explore or things, concepts that you would like to discuss, again, I'm definitely not saying that uh, y- you know, I'm on the path too. So I'm not saying that I have all the answers or you know, but I'm more than willing to dig up the information and we can discuss it. So there you have it. With that said, lots of love to you guys. You are not alone. You are not crazy, and you can move forward and heal from this. And I'll see you guys next week. Okay. Okay. Good night. I'm sorry. This is so strange. Okay. Good night.